The town had always been a quiet place, the kind of area where people recognized each other even from a distance, and where nothing unusual ever happened. Days were slow, nights were peaceful, and most people spent their time thinking about their work, their families, or the changing seasons. But everything began to feel a little strange on the night when the first unusual light appeared in the sky dot. It started with a soft glow above the hills just outside the town. At first, only a few people noticed it. Someone walking their dog looked up and wondered why the sky seemed brighter than usual. A farmer who went out to check on his animals paused for a moment and squinted at the strange shimmer in the distance. It didn't look like a plane or a star. It wasn't moving the way drones move. It hung in the air like something waiting. The next night, more people saw the glow. It had become stronger, a pale silver circle drifting gently above the forest. Some people recorded the light on their phones. Others stood outside their homes, quietly watching, unsure what they were looking at. The older people in town said it reminded them of weather balloons or some kind of army test. But the younger ones thought it looked too smooth, too precise, almost as if it were a live dot by the third night. Curiosity had spread across the whole town. People talked about it in grocery stores, in small cafes, even in school playgrounds. Children asked questions their parents could not answer. The glow appeared again, a little lower now, bright enough to make shadows stretch across the roofs. A few kids dared each other to walk closer to the forest, but the adults stopped them. No one wanted trouble. Security cameras from shops near the edge of town captured something that left people confused. It wasn't just light anymore. There was movement, large, slow movement, like something huge was shifting behind the trees. The footage wasn't clear, but people could see something long, dark, and shaped like a massive wing moving for a second before disappearing again. Some people said it must be a trick of the camera. Others said the forest was full of shadows, and imagination could play tricks on tired eyes. But the feeling in town began to change. What was once curiosity began turning into quiet tension, the kind that made people whisper instead of speak normally. A small group of scientists from a nearby city visited after hearing local reports. They brought equipment, asking questions, and studying the lights. They told the townspeople that sometimes strange reflections happen in the sky, and the forest can create illusions when wind and temperature change quickly. Most people accepted this explanation at first, but the scientists packed up and left without giving any solid answer. Then, one morning, a government drone passed over the forest to check the area, and the footage it recorded was unlike anything anyone expected. At the moment the sun rose and light touched the trees, the drone captured the outline of something enormous. Even though the image was brief and blurred by branches, its shape was unmistakable, a giant body, long and curved, with something that looked like heavy wings folded against its sides. The creature was not standing like any animal people knew. It seemed to crouch, almost as if resting or recovering. The footage leaked quietly. A few people in town had connections, and somehow the video reached them. They shared it with trusted friends, whispering about it behind closed doors. No one wanted to talk about it openly, afraid of causing panic or attracting too much attention. The forest had always been a normal place, a place where people hiked, kids played, and families had picnics. But now, people avoided going near it. Inside the houses closest to the forest, people reported hearing strange sounds at night, deep rumbling vibrations that made windows shake slightly. A few people felt the ground tremble, like something heavy was walking slowly beneath the soil. It didn't sound angry or dangerous, just massive, like something old, something from another world. One woman who lived close to the forest, she heard what seemed like slow breathing, as if something large was exhaling softly behind the trees. She stood at her window for a long time, but saw nothing except the dark outline of the woods. Yet the sound stayed with her. She described it later as something powerful, but calm, almost tired. The forest animals also behaved differently. Birds no longer sang near the tall trees. Dogs refused to go on walks in that direction. Even cows and horses on nearby farms stayed unusually still, watching a forest with a strange alertness, as if they sensed something humans could not. And then came the night when the glow vanished completely. The townspeople stood outside, expecting the silver light to appear again, but the sky was empty. The hills were dark and silent. The forest no longer shimmered. Some people sighed with relief, thinking whatever it was had moved on. Others felt a stronger wave of uneasiness. The quiet felt too sudden, too complete. Around midnight, the town's oldest security camera near an abandoned gas station recorded something remarkable. A shadow, immense and long, moved across the road beside the forest line. It wasn't rushing. It wasn't hiding. It walked with a slow, steady motion, its tail brushing the ground lightly. For only a moment, its silhouette crossed into the moonlight. Anyone who watched the footage later could clearly see the high arch of a neck, the outline of wings, and a long streamlined head turning slightly. As if listening, the creature didn't look like any earth animal. It looked like something from legends, yet also something advanced, graceful, and intelligent. A dragon, but not like the storybook versions. This one seemed alien, something from far beyond Earth. A truck driver passing by that night claimed he felt something unusual before he saw anything. He described a warm wind brushing past his truck, even though the weather was cold. His radio cut out for a second, crackling with a soft metallic hum. When he looked toward the forest, he saw two glowing shapes' eyes watching him calmly from between the trees. He didn't feel threatened. He said the eyes looked curious, almost gentle. Word of his experience spread quietly. People began connecting their own small experiences, the vibration in the ground, the strange lights, the drone footage, the unusual behavior of animals. Each piece alone meant little, but together they formed a picture that people could know, longer ignore. Someone even suggested the creature might not have meant to come here at all. Maybe it was lost. Maybe it was injured. Maybe it was searching for something. No one knew, but the idea made some residents feel sympathy instead of fear. Even with the unsettling sightings, no one was harmed. Not a single animal went missing. Not a single house was damaged. It was as if the creature was trying its best to avoid humans entirely, staying in the deepest parts of the forest and moving only when necessary. That detail made the story even more mysterious. As days passed, the forest stayed quiet. People felt as if something was waiting inside it, something huge and unseen. Schools talked about safety. Families kept their children closer. But life continued, though with a strange new feeling in the air, a mixture of awe and uncertainty. Some nights, people thought they felt a soft, warm breeze drift through town, even when the air was cold, and they wondered if the creature was moving again. Others reported faint metallic humming sounds, like distant machinery, coming from the direction of the hills. The truth was simple but unbelievable. Something massive, intelligent, and from another world had entered their forest. No one knew why it had come or how long it planned to stay. No one knew whether it was hiding, healing, or observing. All they knew was that their quiet little town had become the first known place on Earth to witness a living alien dragon. And though no one realized it yet, this was only the beginning of a story that would change everything, because soon a young girl from the town would cross paths with the creature in a way that no one could have predicted. ChatGPT said, the girl who disappeared was known to everyone in town, not because she was loud or popular, but because she had a gentle way of noticing things other people ignored. She liked watching the sky, collecting small shiny stones, and asking questions adults didn't always know how to answer. She lived a normal life school, home, a few friends, a routine like any other child. But she had a quiet curiosity that made her wander a little farther than most children dared to go. On the day everything changed, the air felt different. People in town said later they had sensed something unusual that morning, nothing scary, just strange, like the world was holding its breath. The sky looked slightly dull, even though the weather forecast had promised sunshine. Birds flew in, odd patterns, circling without direction, and the stray cats near the bakery kept staring toward the forest as if waiting for something. The girl left school as she always did, carrying her small bag on her shoulder. She walked with easy steps, humming a tune she had made up herself. Her teacher remembered that she seemed excited about something, though no one knew what. Maybe she had seen the glow the night before. Maybe she had heard the grown-ups whispering about the strange creature in the forest. Or maybe she simply felt the same invisible pull many others had felt without understanding it. She took her usual path home, the one that passed near the quiet fields and then curved around the forest. Children were told not to enter the deeper parts of the woods, but the outer edges were safe and familiar. She had walked that route countless times. The trees there weren't thick, and the path was clear. You could even see the rooftops of houses if you squinted through the branches. But halfway along the path, something caught her attention. A soft humming sound, almost like a musical vibration, drifted through the air. It wasn't loud. It wasn't frightening. It sounded warm, smooth, and strangely comforting, like a low melody coming from a faraway place. She paused and listened. The sound rose and fell gently, like waves touching a shore. She took a few steps toward the trees, unsure whether the sound was real or her imagination. Usually the forest had ordinary noises, rustling leaves, distant birds, the soft snap of twigs. But this sound was different, almost like a voice calling without words. The path behind her was empty. The air smelled clean, a little sweet, like morning dew, even though it was late afternoon. She stepped closer. Her bag was found later near the spot where the path curved toward the trees. It lay neatly on the ground, not thrown or dragged, just placed there as if she had set it down gently before walking farther. When she didn't come home on time, her family thought she might be talking with neighbors or taking the longer route with a friend. But when it grew dark and she still wasn't home, worry began to spread quickly. They checked with families nearby. No one had seen her. Calls were made. People hurried through the streets asking questions. Within an hour, the whole town seemed to know something was wrong. A search team formed immediately. Local volunteers, police officers, and even some older students who couldn't sit at home, knowing a child was missing. Flashlights flickered through the fields. People called her name again and again, their voices echoing in the quiet evening air. But the forest seemed unusually calm, as if it were holding a secret tightly behind its dark branches. Tracker dogs were brought in, but something strange happened. The dogs whined and refused to move toward the forest. They pulled their handlers in the opposite direction. Their tails lowered, their ears flattened, and they shivered even though the night wasn't cold. The handlers tried again gently, but the dogs wouldn't step near the trees. It was as if they sensed something the humans couldn't see, something immense and unfamiliar inside the forest. The search continued without them. Police moved in carefully, shining their lights between every tree, every bush, every hidden corner. They didn't find any signs of struggle. No broken branches, no footprints that looked human, nothing that showed she had fallen or hurt herself. What they did find were large impressions in the soft ground. They weren't deep enough to be holes, but they had a shape long, curved, and perfectly patterned, like someone had pressed an enormous, delicate sculpture into the soil. No one could identify the prints. They didn't match any animal in the area. They were too smooth, too organized. Even the officers who tried to explain them as simple erosion could not hide their confusion. Back in town, fear mixed with disbelief. People gathered in small groups, whispering. They talked about the lights in the sky, the strange shadow the cameras had captured, the warm breeze some people felt at night. Now a child was missing, and the forest felt like a completely different place, mysterious, silent, hiding something unknown. Parents held their children a little tighter. No one let kids play outside that evening. Houses kept their lights on late. Windows stayed open so people could listen for any sign, any voice, any movement. The entire town acted as one quiet, worried family. Hours passed. Search teams kept returning with nothing but puzzled expressions and more questions. They didn't want to think the worst, but the situation made no sense. How could a child simply disappear on a familiar path? How could she leave? No trace except her bag and those strange marks in the soil? And why did the forest feel heavier than usual, as if it were watching them back? Even though worry filled the air, no one voiced fear of danger. No one talked about harm. Deep down, many people felt the same odd feeling they had felt for days, that the creature in the forest, whatever it was, didn't mean them harm. It had never attacked anyone. It had avoided people from the beginning. The lights had never burned anything. The ground vibrations had never caused damage. Everything about it felt strange, but not violent. Some townspeople whispered their own theories. Maybe the creature had taken her by mistake. Maybe she had found it and was helping it somehow. Others said she might have been the only one brave enough to approach it, the only one it trusted. Some even believed she might be guiding it, not the other way around. As the night grew deeper, the search slowed but did not stop. A soft fog rolled in, covering the ground in a thin white blanket. Flashlight beams glowed faintly through it, moving like slow fireflies. Searchers kept calling her name, hoping she would call back. But deep inside the forest, hidden from everyone's eyes, something else was happening, something no one in town could imagine. She had not been running. She had not been scared. In her journal, which would only be discovered much later, she had written simple lines describing what she felt as she stepped into the trees. She had written about the gentle breeze, warm and comforting. She had written about the soft metallic hum that grew clearer the closer she walked. She had written about feeling watched, but not in a frightening way. More like a child feels watched by a guardian. And at the end of her notes, there was a sentence that hinted she had seen something impossible, something enormous and alive, standing calmly between the trees, waiting for her. It was clear from her words that she had not been taken. She had gone willingly, drawn by a curiosity stronger than fear. Back in town, the night stretched on. People refused to sleep. They brewed tea, sat on porches, prayed, worried, paced floors. They hoped for a miracle. They hoped she would appear at the edge of the forest, tired but safe. Search teams promised they would continue until morning light. But the forest remained silent, holding its secret tight. No one knew it yet, but this was not the end of the story. The girl was not lost, and she was not alone. She had just stepped into the beginning of something far bigger than the town, bigger than Earth itself. And deep within the forest, the creature that had come from the sky, the enormous being with wings, scales, and eyes that glowed like distant stars, had finally found the one human who did not tremble in its presence. The forest felt different than it ever had before. The girl had walked past the path where she usually stayed, stepping into shadows that moved with the wind. But these shadows were different. They seemed to shift as if they were aware of her, not threatening, just observing. She took slow, careful steps, her small hands brushing the leaves as she went, feeling a strange mixture of excitement and calm. The hum she had heard before grew louder as she went deeper. It wasn't harsh or scary, just a soft vibration in the air, almost like the faint ringing of a bell underwater. She tilted her head, listening. She could feel it in her chest, a rhythm that matched her own heartbeat in a strange, comforting way. It was as if the sound wanted her to follow it, and then she saw a dot at first. She thought it was a trick of the trees, a shadow of a branch in the fading light. But as she stepped closer, she realized it was no trick. The creature was enormous, easily taller than any building she had ever seen. Its scales shimmered faintly, reflecting the soft light of the evening. Its wings were folded neatly against its back, but the outline was clear, powerful, strong. Elegant Dot, she froze for a moment, unsure whether to run or stay. But the fear she expected didn't come. Instead, a strange sense of calm washed over her, like standing near a river that was deep but gentle. The creature didn't make a threatening noise. It didn't move toward her aggressively. It just looked at her. Its eyes were unlike anything she had ever seen. They were vast and bright, almost like tiny galaxies, swirling with color and light. And they were focused entirely on her. She took a small step forward. The creature lowered its head slightly, almost in acknowledgement. She felt a pulse of warmth, a sensation that seemed to come from the creature itself. She didn't understand it, but she felt safe. For what seemed like hours, though it was probably only minutes, she and the creature simply stared at each other. The forest around them was quiet. No wind, no animals, no sound except the soft hum that seemed to come from the creature. It moved slightly, adjusting its stance, as she noticed the rhythm of its breathing, slow, deep, deliberate. Each exhale was like a gentle gust of wind brushing past her face. She sat down on a moss-covered rock, unsure why, and suddenly felt the urge to speak. "I'm not going to hurt you," she whispered softly. The words felt strange leaving her mouth, but she had a feeling the creature could understand. It tilted its head, as if considering her statement. Then it did something even more astonishing. The creature stretched one wing, just a little, and a faint light began to glow along the edges of its scales. The light wasn't harsh. It wasn't blinding. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat, in rhythm with the humming sound. She could feel it through the soles of her feet, through her fingers, like it was touching her directly. She had no idea how it was possible, but she felt the creature's presence as something warm, kind, and curious. She reached out a hand slowly, almost trembling. The creature didn't move away. Its eye followed her, and the pulse of light seemed to shift slightly toward her. She placed her hand against its smooth, cool scales. The sensation was incredible, like nothing she had ever touched before. It wasn't hard or rough. It was alive, but calm, solid yet soft in a way that made her heart race with awe. For a long moment, nothing happened except the shared presence of two beings trying to understand each other. Then the creature lowered its massive head closer to hers. She could feel a subtle vibration, a kind of communication without words. She realized it was trying to tell her something, but not in language. It was showing her emotion, curiosity, friendliness, maybe even a sense of loneliness. The girl felt an unexplainable trust. She had read stories about dragons and other mythical creatures, but this was unlike anything in any story. It was real, alive, and somehow it seemed to understand her better than most humans did. She sat quietly, breathing slowly, matching her rhythm with the creature's. Hours could have passed, or maybe only minutes. Time felt different in the forest. She noticed something extraordinary. The creature wasn't just aware of her presence. It seemed aware of the environment, of the forest, and even of the night sky above. Its eyes followed every rustle of a leaf, every small movement. And yet, when it looked at her, there was no threat, only curiosity, and perhaps a sense of connection that she couldn't explain. She realized then that she could move closer if she wanted. Slowly, she approached the creature's chest, feeling the warmth radiating from its body. She gently placed both hands on the scales there. The soft hum grew stronger as she realized the creature was responding to her touch. It wasn't just a physical connection. It felt like a shared understanding. She could sense its rhythm, its mood, its careful consideration of every movement around them. Suddenly, the creature lowered one wing fully, unfolding it in a sweeping motion that caused the air around her to shimmer with light. She instinctively crouched slightly, not out of fear, but out of awe. The wing was massive, stretching far beyond anything she could imagine, lined with the same subtle glow as its scales. And then she noticed something incredible. A small pattern of light pulses along the creature's wingtip, moving in a sequence. She realized it was a kind of communication. It wasn't language like humans use, but a message conveyed in light and vibration. She didn't understand the meaning yet, but she felt the intention. It wanted her to trust it. It wanted her to follow. The girl made a decision, quietly and without hesitation. She climbed carefully onto the rock beside it, testing the surface of its back with her hands. It felt solid, yet alive, like stepping onto a living bridge. She held her breath as she moved closer, her small hands gripping the textured scales. The creature didn't flinch. It simply adjusted slightly, making room. She climbed a little higher, cautiously balancing herself along the smooth contours of its back. Each movement caused the creature to shift, but never roughly. It seemed to be guiding her, adjusting for her presence in a careful, almost protective way. She looked around at the forest from this new vantage point, and it felt like the world had changed. Everything seemed more alive, more connected. The hum had become a gentle pulse in her chest. From the ground, the forest looked normal. Trees, shadows, the fading light of evening. But from the creature's back, she could see things differently. The way the branches curved, the patterns of the leaves, even the shimmer of the stars above. It was like seeing the world through entirely new eyes. She whispered to the creature, unsure if it could understand her words, but compelled to speak anyway. I want to know you," she said softly. The creature tilted its head slowly. The glow along its scales pulsed stronger, almost like a response. She felt a rush of excitement and wonder. She wasn't just seeing a being from another world. She was forming a connection, something rare, something profound. As night fell completely, the forest no longer seemed frightening. Instead, it felt like a sanctuary. The creature settled its wings around her slightly, creating a small, safe space on its back. She rested there, calm, her small hands gripping gently. She could feel the faint rhythm of its heartbeat through her palms. She had no fear, only awe, curiosity, and a strange sense of belonging. In that moment, she realized something important. She was not just observing this creature. She was part of something larger now, something extraordinary. The forest had brought them together. The strange hum had guided her, and her own curiosity had bridged the impossible gap between human and being from another world. It was the beginning of a relationship that would change everything. She didn't know what lay ahead, but she knew one thing clearly. She trusted the creature, and it trusted her. And that trust was powerful, stronger than fear, stronger than doubt. The forest remained quiet that night, but in the stillness, a bond had been formed. A young girl and an alien creature, connected not by words, but by understanding, curiosity, and the simple courage to approach the unknown. By the time the first light of dawn crept into the trees, she was still on its back, and the creature had begun to shift gently, as if preparing for a journey. She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness, but mostly wonder. She was ready to follow wherever it might take her. She didn't know that the world outside, the forest, was already searching for her. She didn't know that soon humans would witness her journey in ways they could never imagine. But in that moment, it didn't matter. All that mattered was the trust they had built, the quiet understanding, and the first step into a story that was larger than the earth itself. The forest was still quiet as the first faint light of morning spread across the treetops. The girl sat on the creature's back, her small hands resting gently on its shimmering scales. The hum that had guided her here the night before now seemed like a soft song, vibrating through her chest with a calm reassurance. She felt awake in a way she had never felt before, alert, curious, and completely alive. From the ground, the world appeared ordinary. But from the creature's back, everything was different. The trees seemed to stretch taller, the shadows formed delicate patterns, and the dew on leaves glimmered in colors she had never noticed. She realized she could feel the forest's energy, the quiet life pulsing through the branches, the soil, and the air itself. She understood somehow that the creature was aware of everything, that it could feel the forest as much as she could. The sun rose higher, casting a warm golden light across the horizon. She leaned forward, looking at the path ahead, and noticed that the creature was preparing to move. Its wings flexed slightly, stretching out as if testing the air. She could feel the faint wind brushing against her face, carrying a scent that was earthy and unfamiliar, but soothing. The creature's pulse of light along its scales grew stronger and steadier, as if signaling that it was ready. Before they moved, she hesitated for a moment. Part of her wanted to stay in the safety of the forest, to remain in this strange, magical place she had discovered. Another part of her, however, felt the excitement of what was about to come. She realized that this was a moment of choice. She could return to the town she had left behind, where people worried and searched for her, or she could follow this creature into the unknown. Her heart raced, but she knew the decision already. Carefully, she shifted her weight and settled more securely on the creature's back. She felt its muscles tense gently beneath her as it prepared to rise. Then, with a movement so smooth and quiet that it almost seemed impossible, the creature lifted off the ground. She held on tightly, feeling the wind rush past her. The forest below began to shrink, the trees becoming smaller and smaller until they looked like tiny toys. The first flight was slow and steady. The creature's wings moved with incredible grace, slicing through the morning air with strength and precision. She could feel the power of each beat, the careful rhythm that allowed them to glide effortlessly. The world below her seemed peaceful, distant, almost dreamlike. For the first time, she saw the town from above. Tiny houses, cars, and roads stretched out, and she realized just how small and fragile her world looked from this height. As they rose higher, the wind carried sounds differently. The distant voices of people searching in the town faded into whispers, replaced by the soft hum of the creature's own presence. She could feel it communicating with her, not with words, but with pulses of warmth and light. Each pulse made her feel reassured, as though the creature was saying, "Don't be afraid. You are safe." Hours passed as they traveled in silence, the forest fading completely behind them. She noticed that the creature did not follow any familiar landmarks. It moved steadily, guided by instincts she could not understand. She realized that this was not just a flight, it was a journey into a world far beyond anything she had imagined. Mountains, rivers, and forests appeared below, shifting into plains and deserts. The sun rose higher, then began to sink, and still they moved onward, never tiring, never slowing. During the flight, she discovered other sensations she had never experienced. She could feel subtle changes in the air, slight shifts in temperature and pressure that told her when they were climbing or gliding. The hum of the creature's presence seemed to adjust, almost like music, matching her emotions and easing her nervousness. She realized that she was learning to trust not only the creature but also herself, and the feeling was empowering. As night approached, she noticed something extraordinary. Stars appeared above, twinkling in ways she had never seen. They were brighter, clearer, almost as if the sky itself was welcoming her to a new world. The creature's scales reflected the starlight, glowing faintly, and she realized they were moving faster now. Higher into the atmosphere, closer to the sky than anything she had ever been. She tried to imagine what lay ahead. She had no idea where they were going, but she felt that it was important. There was a sense of urgency in the creature's movements, not fear or panic, but focus. She wondered if it had a destination, a place it considered home, or if it was simply following a path she could not see. The thought filled her with both curiosity and awe. Suddenly, the creature slowed, hovering above a small cloud formation that glowed faintly in the moonlight. The stars reflected off the cloud in shimmering colors, and she felt as though they had entered a completely different dimension. She could see layers of light, faint shapes that were difficult to describe, and she realized that this was not just a flight, it was a journey into something beyond ordinary human understanding. The hum now seemed louder, resonating not just in her chest, but in her entire body. It was calming, energizing, and strangely emotional at the same time. She could sense the creature's own excitement, and she realized that it shared her sense of wonder. She reached out her hands, feeling the light pulses along its scales. The touch was reassuring, grounding her amidst the incredible sights around her. Hours passed like minutes as they traveled higher, until the faint glow of the horizon indicated the approach of dawn in another part of the world. She could see oceans, mountains, and deserts stretching endlessly below. The scale of the earth itself felt different from up here. She realized how connected everything was, the land, the water, the air, and how small individual worries seemed when compared to the vastness of the planet. The journey continued without stops. She noticed how the creature adjusted its wings effortlessly, how it seemed to anticipate changes in the wind, in the atmosphere, even in the gravitational pull. She realized that this was more than just a flight. It was a lesson in trust, balance, and harmony with the world around her. Every movement required attention, care, and respect, and then came the first real moment of tension. Far below, she saw lights moving quickly through the forests and cities they had left behind. She recognized the search teams from her town, the police, and even news crews. They were scanning the areas where she had been, unaware of where she had gone. She felt a pang of worry not for herself, but for the people who cared for her. They were searching tirelessly, and she wished she could let them know she was safe. The creature sensed her concern. Its wings flexed gently, and the hum shifted in a way she recognized now as reassurance. She leaned forward, whispering softly, though the wind carried her words away. "They'll be okay," she said, more to herself than the creature. She felt the pulse of warmth along her hands, and it was as if the creature understood exactly what she meant. Night fell completely again, and the stars surrounded them like a sea of diamonds. She had lost all sense of how far they had traveled. The earth below was no longer visible, only the curve of the planet faintly glowing, and the endless stretch of sky above. She realized that she was leaving everything familiar behind: her home, her friends, her town, but she felt no fear, only wonder. For the first time, she noticed that the creature was preparing something she could not see clearly, but could sense in the air. The hum shifted, the light pulses along its scales grew faster, and she felt a sudden vibration beneath her hands and feet. She held on tighter, her heartbeat matching the rhythm. She realized that the creature was about to do something extraordinary. And then, slowly, the space around them began to shimmer. The air above and below twisted lightly, creating a faint spiral of light that seemed almost alive. She could feel a strange, gentle pull, like being drawn toward something new. The creature's wings beat with precision, and she realized This was the moment they would leave the ordinary world entirely. The girl didn't feel fear. She felt exhilaration, trust, and awe. She knew that the journey ahead would be beyond anything anyone on Earth could understand. She leaned forward slightly, feeling the air and the light swirl around them, and realized that this was not just a flight. It was the beginning of a new adventure, one that would change her life forever. And as the spiral of light grew stronger, she understood that she was about to cross a threshold into something entirely different, a world beyond Earth, guided by a being she had come to trust completely. The light around them grew brighter, soft yet powerful, twisting and turning like a river of stars. The girl held on tightly to the creature's shimmering back, her heart beating fast, not from fear, but from awe. The hum that had guided her through the forest, that had pulsed with warmth through every flight and every movement, now filled her completely. She felt it in her chest, her hands, her legs, even in her hair as the wind rushed past her. From below, Earth was fading. The continents, the oceans, the forests, the towns, they all became a distant blue and green blur, shrinking into a delicate sphere, floating in the vast darkness of space. She had never imagined the Earth could look so small, so fragile, so beautiful. The memory of her home, the streets, the trees, her family was still vivid in her mind. She could almost hear the voices of the people who had been searching for her, and yet a sense of calm washed over her. She knew she was safe, with the creature guiding her through something far bigger than the world she had always known. The creature's wings beat steadily, smoothly, creating currents of air that lifted them higher and higher. She felt every movement as a rhythm she could almost dance to, her body swaying gently in harmony. The glow along its scales shifted constantly, flashing like tiny pulses of a heartbeat, and she realized that the creature was communicating with her in ways she could now feel. It was telling her, "Trust, you are ready. You are not alone." Time became strange. Minutes stretched like hours. Hours passed like seconds. She had no sense of day or night, only the continuous, wondrous sensation of movement through something she could not fully describe. Stars passed by in patterns she had never imagined, glowing brighter, spinning subtly as they moved around her. She saw colors beyond the spectrum she had known, swirling across the sky, blending in ways that made her chest tighten with awe. The creature's massive eyes seemed to see more than her own. She realized it was aware of every detail, every star, every cloud of dust, every distant glimmer of light from planets and moons she could not name. And yet, every time it looked at her, she felt acknowledged, understood, valued. The feeling was so profound that tears formed at the corners of her eyes. She had never known that connection could be so deep. As they traveled, she began to notice faint shapes moving around them, tiny glowing specks, like fireflies, but more intricate and alive. They circled them briefly, then disappeared into the vast darkness. She realized that this place, this universe beyond the sky she had known, was not empty. Life existed here in forms she had never imagined, delicate yet powerful, subtle yet infinitely complex. And she, a single human girl, was witnessing it firsthand. The creature's pulse of light began to change rhythm. It was faster now, more urgent. She felt a gentle shift in the air, a subtle pull guiding them forward. She didn't know where they were going, but she understood the creature's intention. It was leading her to something important, something beyond the vast, dark expanse of space. She leaned forward, pressing her hands against its scales, and whispered, "I'm ready." The hum responded, softening for a moment, and she felt the warmth spread like sunlight across her body. Slowly, the darkness ahead began to shimmer. A faint spiral of light appeared, twisting and glowing in patterns that reminded her of the hum she had first heard in the forest. It was not frightening. It was inviting. She felt her pulse quicken. The creature adjusted its wings slightly, then soared forward, guiding them through the spiral. She realized they were not just moving through space, they were moving through something alive, something that connected worlds in ways she could not yet understand. As they passed through, she saw incredible shapes, glowing ribbons of energy stretching in all directions, spheres of light that seemed to hold entire miniature galaxies within them, and streams of color that moved like water through the darkness. Her chest tightened with wonder. She tried to speak, but no words came. She could only watch. Absorbing the magnitude of what was around her. The creature slowed as they emerged on the other side. She could feel the shift immediately. The air, or whatever this place contained, was different. The light was warmer, more comforting. The hum was steady, calm, almost like a gentle heartbeat. Below them stretched a vast landscape of colors and shapes that defied Earth's physics. Floating islands glowed with soft light. Rivers of energy twisted across the sky. Structures that seemed alive pulsed with rhythm. She felt both insignificant and deeply connected, a small part of something incomprehensibly large and beautiful. She realized then that she was seeing the creature's home, its world, and it had brought her here for a reason. She didn't yet understand why, but she felt certain she was meant to be here, at least for now. She took a deep breath and looked down at the creature, its eyes calm and welcoming. It lowered its head slightly, inviting her to move closer. She reached out and rested her hands on the smooth scales near its neck. Feeling warmth and steady strength, they descended slowly, and she felt the ground, or whatever served as ground here, beneath them. The air shimmered differently near the surface, vibrating gently against her skin. The creature settled, folding its wings in a careful, deliberate motion. She felt a small sense of nervousness. She had come so far, left everything familiar, and now she was in a place she could not name, with a being she barely understood. And yet, she felt more alive than ever. The creature moved gently, guiding her to stand on a surface that glowed softly under her feet. She looked around. There were no other humans, no familiar signs of home, only the vast, luminous world stretching endlessly around her. She noticed patterns in the ground that pulsed with light when she stepped on them. They weren't just decoration. They reacted to her presence. Almost like the world itself recognized her as a visitor, she began to explore cautiously. The creatures that floated nearby observed her without fear. Some shimmered and changed shape when they noticed her presence, while others moved gracefully, creating arcs of light in the air. It was not frightening, only beautiful and extraordinary. She realized that this world, like the creature, operated on trust and understanding rather than fear. The creature stayed close. It guided her when the paths shifted or when the light patterns changed unexpectedly. She felt a deep sense of gratitude and trust. She realized that it had chosen her, just as she had chosen to follow it. They were partners in this journey, sharing a bond deeper than anything she had known on Earth. Hours or maybe days passed in a way she could not measure. Time seemed irrelevant here. She learned to follow the rhythm of the world, moving when the pulses encouraged her, resting when the light slowed. She discovered that the creature communicated constantly, not with words, but with light and subtle vibrations. She learned to respond, to anticipate its movements, to feel the shared rhythm. At one moment, the creature stopped near a large formation of glowing crystals. She noticed that the light pulses from the crystals matched those of the creature. She realized that it had brought her here deliberately to show her something important. She knelt and touched one of the crystals, feeling warmth and energy flow through her hands. She understood, without thinking, that this world was alive in a way Earth could never be, and that her presence mattered here. As she stood up, the creature nudged her gently with its snout, and she felt a rush of affection. She realized she had grown to care deeply for this being. It had saved her, guided her, trusted her, and now it shared its home with her. She wanted to understand it, to learn from it, and to honor the trust it had placed in her. Eventually, the creature guided her to a higher platform, overlooking the entire luminous landscape. She could see distant formations of light, floating islands, and streams that shimmered endlessly. She realized that she had crossed into a universe unlike anything humans could imagine, a place of beauty, knowledge, and endless discovery. She felt excitement and wonder, but also a deep responsibility. She understood that being here was not just about seeing, it was about learning. Respecting and connecting Dot, she whispered softly, "Thank you." The creature's light pulses brightened for a moment, a response she felt deep in her chest. She smiled, realizing that words were not needed. Trust, understanding, and presence were enough. Dot, as she looked out over the vast, glowing world, she realized that she was part of a story far larger than she had ever imagined. The Earth she had left behind would continue, but this new place, this adventure, had begun. She was alive in a way she could never have predicted, connected to a being who had become her friend, her guide, and her protector. And in the silence of the luminous world, surrounded by the glow of life, energy, and infinite possibilities, she understood something that would stay with her forever. She had crossed into the universe, not as a frightened child, but as someone brave enough to trust, to follow, and to embrace the unknown. She looked at the creature once more, its eyes full of calm and reassurance, and felt a quiet joy. Whatever came next, whatever discoveries awaited, she knew she would face them together. The journey that began in a quiet forest had led her to a universe of wonder, and she was ready to explore it fully, with trust, courage, and a heart wide open.